No, mate, hi to mate. Thanks for joining us on AM this morning. It is great to have you here, 6:45. Lots to discuss from the weekend's results of election night, but with more than 500,000 special votes still to be counted. We won't know the final result until November 3rd. That's 20% of all votes cast. ACT leader David Seymour, Green MP Chloe Swarbrick with me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations to both of you on Epsom and Auckland Central. And David, congratulations to you on being in, well, you're going to be in government.
Yeah, look, there's obviously a bit of water to go under that particular bridge, but our commitment in return for the huge trust that people have put, people of Epsom and Tamaki, all those people who gave their party vote to ACT. So we're going to have to work double hard to repay that trust. So first of all, we need a government that is stable, it has political stability, that it can then implement the real change of policy that New Zealand has overwhelmingly voted for. If we don't deliver that, then I'm sure there'll be bad political consequences for us, but more importantly, New Zealand will continue to be a place that's unaffordable, unsafe and divided, and we've got a big job turning around those three areas.
What did you talk about with Luxon on the phone last night?
Basically how we're going to play the next few weeks, so without starting to have the whole conversation broadcast between us and the media, we know that there's going to be a big challenge. We know that we're going to have to deliver that stability and change at the same time.
Is the plan to have for you guys to be negotiating with each other first, getting an idea of where you are, putting that down on paper and then dealing with Winston?
Yeah, look, I think that's the right way to proceed, and I hope that we will. I think ultimately we look at the prospect of a three-way negotiation. We welcome all voices to the table. If New Zealand First want to be part of that discussion, then I think that they should front up and say what is it that they would like the next government to achieve, what can they contribute. But if they don't want to, then I think the right way forward is for ACT National to hammer out a deal, because there's 3 weeks where we don't have the final result.
Yeah.
I think the New Zealand people will expect us to be ready to hit the ground running when that 3 weeks is up, rather than get the vote on November 3, then spend another month and it's basically Christmas time before people get action that they voted for.
The problem is, though, that you've got the specials coming in, which could mean that the Nats lose a seat. Therefore, you guys are in trouble. You need Winston, but then you gain one again on November 25th. So could it stretch out that far?
Well, there's basically two scenarios, right? One is that you need New Zealand First. The other is that you don't need New Zealand First. Now, if you do, then I think we should be having three-way talks now to work that out, what that looks like. If you don't, then I think ACT National should keep their expressed preference during the election. Both Chris Luxon and I said our strong preference is to work together, and we should keep that commitment to each other if we don't need a third party. But I think we can prepare for both of those scenarios beforehand. Your point on the Port Waikato by-election, in any scenario, that won't change the result, but it will strengthen the result. So let me just be clear about that. If a seat flips from right to left, then the Port Waikato by-election won't actually change the result. There will be a need for a three-party government if a seat flips from right to left on the specials. If a seat does not flip from right to left on the specials, or even comes the other way from left to right on the specials, then the Port Waikato by-election will strengthen the right's majority, but it won't deliver a majority for the right. No, sorry, I know that's quite nitty-gritty, but it answers your question. There's not a scenario where we're going to be waiting until November 25th to find out what the final shape of Parliament is. That will only strengthen a result. So
within a week or two of November 3rd, we should have some kind of announcement?
Look, I think that's what the New Zealand people expect.
Right. Chloe, how are you feeling after the weekend? Because you were in celebration mode, and a lot of our panellists on our show on Newshub said, you're out of government, guys. Sure, you've done well in Wellington Central and in Rongotai, but you don't have any influence anymore.
I think, again, if you look at a number of different variables, what we did with the Green Party result on election night was make history in a number of different ways. I mean, we have 3 electorates. That's the first time that a minor party has held those 3 general electorates. You also have a situation where, coming out of our second term in that relationship with the Labour-led government, we grew our vote once again, which again puts us in a position to defy history. And with that win in Auckland Central, it's the first time that we've ever seen the Greens retain an electorate. So I just wanted to be really clear, no politician and no political party is entitled to the support of any electorate, any communities, any neighbourhood, anyone within this country. So we work doubly hard every single single day to earn that trust and respect to be able to do that work. And I think it's just phenomenal, the results that we got as a result of that grassroots campaigning. And I think that this is a really important point here, Ryan, is the work over the next 3 years is, I think, going to look increasingly and incredibly local. And that's what I'm going to be hitting the ground running with come this morning. I'm meeting with Mayor Wayne Brown to make sure that we get the results that we need for Auckland.
Cool. What do you think killed Labour in Wellington, the wealth tax?
I was just saying to you before we came on here, it seemed incredibly fertile soil, you know. People really, really wanted progressive change, and I do think that there is going to have to be some soul searching from the Labour Party. You know, we were promised for 6 odd years kind of rhetoric of transformation, and for many I think it felt like it was met with a reality of tinkering, and that's what the Greens campaigned on. We campaigned on genuinely progressive, bold and obviously independently costed ideas.
A line in the sand. David, what killed Labour in Auckland? COVID and crime?
Yeah, well, look, I think, first of all, the crime that people have experienced. I mean, if you go downtown to the CBD, it's pretty rough. People come back from there, often report a pretty bad experience and say, man, is that actually part of New Zealand?
Yeah.
And that's a really sad thing, because I know a lot of retailers down there are bearing the brunt of it. The second issue, as you say, we were locked down unnecessarily, basically because Chris Hipkins forgot to order the vaccines. He never explained how we got from being at the front of the queue for vaccines to being the last in the Western world to get vaccinated, and the cost for Aucklanders in that time was enormous. But I think the real question now is, what are we going to do to ensure that that Royal Commission of Inquiry is fulsome so that it never happens again? The Royal Commission is too limited. We must reopen the terms of reference and allow the public to have an input on what the questions are.
Because Winston is singing from that same songbook.
Yeah, and look,
you'd agree with him on those issues?
Well, we criticised those terms of reference when they came out. We proposed during the campaign, because, see, the problem with the COVID response is it didn't listen. It was far too high-minded, podium of truth and so on. But the Royal Commission terms of reference don't ask enough questions either. And I think the remedy to that is to reopen the terms of reference and ask people, you know, how would you like to be able to actually contribute the right questions that should be asked?
Totally. Do you want to be the Deputy Prime Minister?
Look, I've always said that what matters more than which seat you sit on the bus is where the bus is going. Yeah. And so I'm more interested in what the direction...
We had a debate about this on Saturday, and I said, do you know what, I don't think David would want that, because it's quite a ceremonial role. It doesn't really mean anything. Is that a fair assumption of your character?
Yeah, well, look, I'd like to think that I'm driven by what we can achieve rather than the status, because at the end of the day, you know, being a minister or a deputy prime minister, I mean, that comes and goes. What stays is the policies you put in place. So if I look at end-of-life choice, I mean, just about weekly I get emails and messages from people who say, thank you for doing that.
Stuff. It's the
But, you know, I actually, ironically, had to turn down being a minister so that I was in for technical reasons, so I could do that.
Does the Act want ministers, though? You want ministers in a cabinet, right?
We do, but first of all, you know, before you decide where you sit on the bus, you've got to make sure it's going in the right place. So as long as we have a government that has got the policy direction right, then absolutely. And
Karen Shaw told me she wanted to be the Minister of Children. I think she'd be fantastic.
Well, she'd be brilliant. Look, number one, frankly, she's got the moral authority, having suffered through that system herself. But number two, you know, she's not just someone who said, I was a victim and therefore, she's someone who has actually done the work over 3 years to say, well, how would you reform Oranga Tamariki to truly make the child at the centre?
She'd make a good minister, wouldn't she?
She certainly would.
Chloe, let's talk about this referendum on the treaty principles that David is proposing. Your leader, James Shaw, has said that this could lead to violence. It could lead to social unrest. Do you agree with him?
I mean, we've discussed this on the couch before, right, on the fact that putting forward a kind of quite reductive binary on ultimately what is a sophisticated and quite complex constitutional conversation and question can ultimately result in triggering some quite untoward rhetoric. So I do think, and we've said this before as well in discussion on this couch, that there is the need to have a discussion about our constitutional future and our past, but I don't think that this referendum proposal is the right way to do it.
David, James Shaw says this could lead to violence. John Tamahere from the Māori Party says it could lead to cities being shut down, widespread civil unrest and the closing down of major centres in New Zealand.
Well, I mean, you know, you expect it from John Tamahere. He is unhinged and irresponsible in just about everything that he does. I was really surprised by James Shaw to lose an election and then say, if the democratic will of the people is honoured, there will be violence. That's the sort of thing that I expect from fringe lunatic politicians, not from James Shaw, who's just had a really good result, who's generally regarded as a respectable person. So for him to be making that sort of veiled threat, actually saying that violence is justified if you disagree with a political outcome.
That's not what James was
That's
saying.
absolutely outrageous. It's exactly what he said. It's unforgivable in my view, and I think James Shaw should retract that and say it's never acceptable to have violence. We will participate in a healthy, rational discussion about our constitutional future, rather than make the kind of, not quite threats, but the kind of rhetoric that he's engaging in. Really astonished to hear that from James Shaw.
No, I just really need to be clear that James was not making any form of veiled threats, and to imply that is actually rather irresponsible. What he was saying is that if you look at the trajectory of those kinds of conversations and the type of rhetoric that tends to come forward from an oversimplified binary, which does divide people, then you need to look at the consequences that have occurred over the course of history.
Well, Australia's just had a very similar referendum. Now, I'm not aware that Australia's in a great deal of unrest.
I mean, you can talk to people on the ground and you'll hear that there was a huge amount of racism that came out as a result of that, and a huge amount of misunderstanding as well.
I suppose the question is, should you not do something? Should you not use a function of democracy just because
I absolutely think that we should use functions of democracy. What I'm saying is that the way to achieve that is not through a reductive binary referendum, which is presupposing that there's only two ways that this conversation can play out.
Well, I just think it's absolutely disgraceful.
Right.
James Shaw should be in favour of rational debate, not saying...
And he is. The point that Green's remains is that we can have these conversations in a way that doesn't presuppose that there's a binary outcome.
David, should the 15,000 public servants that you spoke about in the election campaign be packing their bags?
Well, no. I mean, there's no suggestion that people are going to, lose their job tomorrow. What is going to happen is that...
Didn't you say by Christmas you'd be firing people?
What I've said is that a lot of people have contracts where they have 6 months redundancy, where actually, you're going to take some time. We're not just going to randomly get rid of people. What we're involved in is saying, how is it possible that we've got 30% more people in the core public service and worse results?
So these 15,000 people who were a bit nervous during the election, probably voting Green in Wellington, I imagine, how long do they have? How long, give them a time frame for when they'll all be fired?
Well, I think your rhetoric's not that helpful. I think what you got to point...
That's your rhetoric from the campaign.
I think what you got to point...
We will get rid of them, I think you said.
What we need to get to is, and first of all, let's just be really clear, when we talk about the public service, we're not talking about nurses, we're not talking about teachers, we're not talking about police, we're talking about 60,000 odd bureaucrats, mainly in Wellington, which is up from 47,000 just 6 years ago. Now, we've got 30% more people in the core public service, 30,000 more bureaucrats, or 30%, sorry, more bureaucrats, as many people would say. But do we have more kids at school? Are they learning more? Are the roads better? None of that's happened.
All right.
So we're going to have to get more efficiency, because every household and business is doing it. Government is going to have to tighten its belt too.
We have to leave it there, guys. Thank you very much for coming in this morning. Congratulations again. ACT leader David Seymour and Green MP Chloe Swarbrick. It is 2 away from 7.